How many times has someone used what you said against you? Phrases that everyone who talks too much has heard. Have you ever realized that sometimes your own words are your worst enemy? That every sentence you reveal can be turned into a weapon against you? The world doesn't punish silence, it punishes exposure. Have you noticed that some people have a certain magnetism? They enter a room and without saying a word, everyone notices their presence. It's not luck. It's not coincidence. It's strategy. While most people rush to speak, justify and explain themselves, those who truly understand power remain silent, observe, and wait. They create mystery effortlessly. They make others try to guess what they are thinking. Some people can read and understand a room without saying a single word. They walk into a space and without speaking, already know who is in charge, who is insecure, who is bluffing. They pick up on unspoken tensions, lies masked by smiles, intentions hidden behind politeness. They are natural strategists, and it's not because they are magical or have some supernatural gift, but because they have developed the skill of deep observation. We live in a noisy world where everyone wants to be heard, but few truly know how to listen. There's an illusion that those who talk the most have the most control. But the truth is that real power belongs to those who know how to remain silent and observe. Sun Tzu wrote, "If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles." But knowing others requires more than words. It requires perceiving what is not being said. Most people believe that observing simply means looking. But looking does not mean seeing. Observing is capturing what lies beneath the surface. It's noticing the hesitation before a response, the subtle shift of a gaze, the tension in someone's shoulders as they pretend to be relaxed, the change in tone that reveals hidden insecurity. Words can lie, but the body never hides the truth. Machiavelli understood this deeply. To him, the game of power was not won with speeches alone, but with the ability to interpret gestures, actions, and omissions. The true strategist does not rely on what is said, but on what is revealed in the details. The boss who praises the team but avoids eye contact. The friend who promises support but crosses their arms and steps back when you need them. The person who smiles but presses their lips together right after, holding back something they don't want to say. The colleague who agrees with you but keeps their feet pointed toward the exit, ready to leave. The leader who claims to be confident but keeps their shoulders tense and hands restless. What is essential is rarely spoken aloud. It is in the gestures, the pauses, the omissions. If just this already reveals so much, imagine those who talk too much. Those who act impulsively become predictable. Those who cannot control their emotions become vulnerable. In chess, the impatient player moves their pieces without a plan and falls into traps. In life, the same thing happens. Have you noticed how some people always seem to know what to do at the right time? How they respond precisely without hesitation, as if they had already anticipated what would happen. It's not about intelligence or strength, it's about perception. But observation is not just about understanding others. It reveals who you truly are. If you don't know your own emotional triggers, you will be easily manipulated. Do you get irritated when someone ignores you? Feel uncomfortable with silence in a conversation? Or does your anxiety rise when someone takes too long to reply? Each of these reactions says something about you, and someone more attentive can use that against you. If you don't understand your own emotions, there will always be someone who does, who will use them to control you. If you want to test your observation skills, try spending an entire day just observing. When someone speaks, notice the small gestures. Pay attention to body language, tone of voice, the pauses between words. And by the end of the day, you will have learned something very important. Everyone wants to be heard, but few understand the power of remaining silent. There is a difference between those who speak to fill the void and those who know how to wait for the right moment. And it is precisely this unpredictability that makes silence such an important ally. Silence is not passivity. In fact, it is an active strategy. It allows you to observe before acting, measure your words, perceive hidden intentions, and dismantle opponents without exposing yourself. Responding in the heat of the moment is a primary mistake. When we speak impulsively, we reveal our weaknesses, give away information that could be used against us, and without realizing it, become unpredictable. To Machiavelli, power was not just in what was said, but more importantly, in what was deliberately left unsaid. A ruler who talks too much becomes a prisoner of their own words. A strategist who reveals their plans too soon loses any advantage. When someone provokes you, they expect you to react. When someone pressures you, they want to throw you off balance. But if you maintain silence, you dismantle their game. The void of your response forces the other person to question themselves, to fill the gap with their own insecurities. This happens in arguments, negotiations, and even personal relationships. Many times, the absence of words carries more weight than any argument. Silence is also a tool of self-control. In moments of crisis, the one who remains calm automatically becomes the most important person in the room. In the midst of chaos, while everyone is talking, shouting, or trying to impose their opinions, the one who observes, without haste, radiates authority. Talking too much can be a rushed move that puts you at a disadvantage. But mastering silence doesn't just mean stopping talking. It means learning to withstand the discomfort of emptiness, both yours and others. Silence can feel unbearable because it forces us to confront our own thoughts. But it is precisely in that space that true power lies. If you want to test this in practice, try remaining in complete silence for 15 minutes a day. No phone, no music, no distractions. Just you and your thoughts. At first it may feel strange, but over time you'll realize that the more you get used to silence, the less the silence of others will affect you. Silence is not absence, it is presence. It is not weakness. It is strategy. And when used wisely, it can be the most powerful tool there is. A type of power that does not need to impose itself with words. That is built in absence, in empty space, in the doubt that arises when someone waits for a response and doesn't receive. 1. Silence, when used with intention, becomes an instrument of control. It creates mystery, forces others to project their own meanings, generates discomfort, and ultimately makes the other person strive to fill the void. Those who understand this can become masters of manipulation. Sun Tzu stated that all warfare is based on deception, and silence is one of the most sophisticated ways to deceive without having to lie. In a negotiation, for example, the one who speaks less usually holds the advantage. Those who fill the space with words expose their anxiety, give away unnecessary information, and reveal their intentions too soon. Meanwhile, those who know how to remain silent force the other person to talk more, to expose insecurities, and often to concede without realizing it. Silence creates a tension that can be used to bend an opponent without ever raising your voice. Leaders who cultivate a certain degree of mystery tend to be more respected because their unpredictability makes them harder to manipulate. Predictable people who always say what they think and react immediately are easy to control. But those who leave questions unanswered, who create strategic pauses, who don't immediately reveal their emotions or intentions, exert an invisible control over others. Silence can also be a form of punishment. In arguments and relationships, the absence of a response is often more painful than any harsh words. When someone expects a reaction and is met with emptiness, the frustration becomes unbearable. This happens because human beings have a psychological need for closure. We want to know what the other person thinks, to close loops, to understand what is happening. When that is denied to us, we are forced to deal with uncertainty. Those who understand this mechanism can use it to maintain control over the emotions of others. This strategy, when used abusively, can become a cruel weapon. It can isolate, weaken, and create emotional dependence in the other person, who begins to desperately seek any sign of validation. Great manipulators do this. They alternate moments of attention with long periods of absence, forcing the other person to struggle to regain their attention. This creates a cycle of submission and desire that traps the victim in a psychological game. Silence, therefore, is not neutral. It can be a tool of power or an instrument of domination. It can be used to maintain calm and strategy, but also to confuse, punish, and manipulate. Knowing when to use it and when to break it is what separates those who control it from those who are controlled by it. But how can one learn this? Absence sometimes speaks louder than any word. In the world of power, winning does not always mean advancing. Sometimes it means retreating at the right moment, letting the other person get lost in assumptions, creating impact not through presence but through its absence. When utilized, emptiness becomes an element capable of generating tension, attracting attention, and destabilizing those who expect predictability. In cinema, a well-placed silence can be more unsettling than a scream. In art, the blank space on a canvas can be as expressive as the paint. The same happens in human relationships and power dynamics. Planned absence provokes curiosity, generates speculation, and leaves room for others to project their own fears and expectations. Sun Tzu's The Art of War states that the best way to win a conflict is not to face it head-on, but to strip it of its meaning. Instead of resisting a direct attack, it is better to withdraw, letting the enemy exhaust themselves. This principle applies to many situations, from debates where silence disarms the opponent, to relationships where distance makes the other person realize your true value. Machiavelli explores the idea that a ruler who is excessively present becomes predictable and loses the element of mystery, but one who withdraws at the right moment increases their authority because their absence is felt. The people do not value the leader who is always available. They value the one whose presence seems rare and necessary. The power of inaction is often underestimated. In a world where everyone seeks visibility, where every minute of silence feels like a lost opportunity, those who know how to step back stand out effortlessly. Absence can be interpreted in many ways. It can command respect, instill fear, or awaken desire. Everything depends on the intention behind it.
Think about that friend who disappears from social media, and suddenly everyone wants to know where they've been.
A coworker who doesn't give immediate responses, making others wait in anticipation. Or someone you've just met who doesn't reply to messages right away, making you think about them even more. Silence and absence play with our minds. When something is no longer always available, we begin to see value in what we previously overlooked. This strategy requires control. When overused, it can alienate rather than attract. Becoming too inaccessible can lead to being forgotten rather than desired. The secret is balance, knowing when to disappear and when to reappear, when to create emptiness and when to fill it. Observing before acting gives us an advantage. Avoiding impulsive reactions protects us from emotional traps. Maintaining silence in the face of provocation destabilizes those who expect a response. Creating a certain level of mystery makes us less predictable and therefore harder to manipulate. But all of this requires a level of discipline that few are willing to develop. If you want to apply this wisdom in your daily life, start small. Train your observation skills. Instead of always trying to intervene or respond immediately, practice simply listening. Observe expressions, gestures, and the moments when the silence of others reveals more than their words. Test the power of the pause in conversations, in decisions, in any situation where the impulse would be to speak without thinking. And most importantly, try reducing your unnecessary exposure, whether on social media, in everyday interactions, or intense moments. See what happens when you become less accessible. Silence, when mastered, is not emptiness. It is a weapon, a shield, and a strategy. But the question remains, do you control your silence, or does it control you? Share your thoughts below. I'll be reading the comments. And remember, this is just one piece of the puzzle. See you in the next video.